Good afternoon and welcome to Midcap Radar live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studio. I am Vamakshi Doria and with me is Vivek Iyer. Good afternoon to you, Vivek. Well, it's been a steady, slow rise for the markets, but at least, thank God, at least the benchmark indices are in the green. Cannot say the same for the midcap end of the market though.
That's right. Good afternoon, Vamakshi. Vamakshi, just an hour ago when we were on air, we were talking about how markets, especially the Nifty Bank, after a brief breather yesterday, was back in the green. But just in the last hour, we've seen quite a bit of a sell-off. But we have quite a lot lined up on the show. Let's start off with the top headlines. Stocks move steadily higher after US and China agree on a trade framework. But China's curbs on exports to India are a new bother. IT, metal and pharma stocks are big gainers while FMCG drags. Midcaps lag.
Maharashtra has raised excise duty on Indian-made foreign liquor while keeping the levy on beer and wine unchanged, sparking big moves in stocks. The state has also introduced a new category for liquor made locally.
OMCs higher after US Oil Body Energy Information Administration releases crude outlook. Says rising global oil inventories will drive crude oil prices lower.
Oil India surges after a Vendis Spark initiates coverage with a buy and a target of 630 rupees. Brokerage firm expects over 80% earnings growth potential over the next 3 years.
Aditya Birla Capital rises after 2.34 crore shares worth 568 crore rupees change hands, while Marks & Pharma also gains after a block deal worth 257 crore rupees. Welcome to Midcap Radar. Well, the big story as far as the last half hour is concerned has been the fact that market coupling could be back on the table as far as the Indian power spot market is concerned. We are talking about the short-term power exchange. This is a story that was done by our colleague Abhimanyu from Delhi. And the simple, one-liner as far as this particular story is concerned is that the power minister is going to conduct stakeholder consultation as far as market coupling implementation is concerned. The reason you are seeing quite a sharp downtick as far as IEX is concerned is that it means that there could be increased competition. Remember, IEX is the single largest player as far as the spot market is concerned. Any competitive intensity rising for the spot market is something that market participants view negatively as far as IEX is concerned. That explains why the stock is now perched at the lowest circuit. But we have Horma standing by the wall. He'll take us through all of the stocks in the broader end of the markets that are moving around.
Well, IEX has grabbed all the spotlight, right, over the last few minutes, and that takes away from the fact that there are plenty of other movers in the broader market. So we start off with some green, since Vivek has mentioned a lot about IEX, which is down in the dumps right now. But look at Walk Hard. There's a very sharp spike that we had seen somewhere around 11:30, and since then the stock has moved 15% higher now on that stock in Walk Hard. Positive commentary coming in from Oil India on a brokerage note. Newland Laboratories and Sterling and Wilson too. Newland Laboratories now at the highest point of the day, 7% higher for that stock as well. Now, some of the others in today's trading session, the Alcobev names, they were the ones that were in the spotlight since the morning. And United Spirits at one point was down 8%, still down 7%. Allied Blenders also. But the bucking the trend here, GM Breweries and Sula, 16% higher on GM Breweries, 8% higher on Sula. And of course, Sula, mind you, still below its IPO price of 357. But some of the other movers in the profit booking coming in for these capital market linked names, BSE, of course, we just mentioned the fact that it has been put under additional surveillance now, 5% lower on that stock. CDSL, MCX, Motilal Oswal, all of these names have risen anywhere between 30 to 40% in the last 1 month. So seeing some bit of profit booking from higher levels. On the other end, stocks that are doing well on the volumes front, Tata Tele Maharashtra was the top gainer on the Nifty 500 today, 10% higher on that stock. CRISIL doing well for itself, and IKS on strong volumes is up 4%. And as Vivek was just mentioning, IEX among the top losers, of course the top loser on the Nifty 500 now, 9% lower on that stock. And of course some profit booking seen in Garden Reach, Zen Technologies, the defense names, and KFin Tech 2 at the lowest point of the day. Back to you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Hormas, for that comprehensive list. I think it's a good time to now welcome in Jay Thakkar from ICICI Securities for a technical check on the market. Jay, very good afternoon to you. This is Vamakshi joining in. Jay, what is your take on the markets for now? We saw a very strong, steady rise from the muted start that we saw, but it has come off slightly from the day's highest point. Where do you think the markets are headed now?
Hi, very good afternoon to you, Vamakshi and Vivek. Well, see, as far as the Nifty is concerned, I think that since last week. I mean, since Friday, we have seen this breakout coming beyond the levels of 25,000, and it's been almost three consecutive days is what we got a close about 25,000. So that level becomes a clearly important level also for this weekly expiry Mamakship to see. And 25,100 and 25,000, these are the two strikes wherein we have good amount of put base. However, on the upside, there is just 25,200 wherein we are seeing the immediate call writing, and that would act as a resistance, which is, in fact, and that's the reason we have seen the index correcting from the high levels. It did move beyond the levels of 25,200 but could not sustain above it. So I think that the expiry could be between this range of 25,200 to 25,000. However, the probability of breakout post this consolidation is upside only, because overall, if you see the banking and financials, which had actually got a breakout, are almost about to retest their breakout levels. And once that retesting happens on both Bank Nifty and Trend Nifty, I think the upward journey again would start out there. So buy on it should be the strategy on Bank Nifty and Trend Nifty, on the financials, because they have been correcting since 3 days now. Nifty has been like first day after this breakout, wherein it's consolidating. So overall, the trend is bullish. I think till positionally 25,000 on Nifty and 56,000 on Bank Nifty, these levels are held. The overall trend will be bullish.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for your market views. Individual stocks, do you have buy calls? Do you have a buy and a sell as well?
Vivek, see, as our outlook is positive, I have two buy recommendations. First one is on GAIL Authority of India, that is Gas Authority of India, GAIL. See, the stock has provided a very nice breakout from an ascending triangular pattern, coupled with a long build-up in the derivative segment as well. It's been after a long time that, the open interest has started moving up with the price, and the positions were quite low. As far as future segment is concerned, Vivek. So one can go long on GAIL. It's currently trading around the levels of 199. I think 194.5 would be a good stop loss on the downside, as that's a crucial support. And on the upside, one can target 210 to 215. That would be my first target. My second buy recommendation would be on, from the metal pack, and that's on Nalco. In today's trading session, we were seeing that, it's trading sideways to negative. But then, Vivek, overall metal have, come back into the momentum, and I think Nalco could head towards the levels of 205. Positionally, one can go long on this, placing a stop loss below 185.
Well, thank you so much for that, Jay. So keeping an eye out on both GAIL as well as Nalco. But before we slip into a very short break, then let's take you through our newest offering. CNBC-TV18 Access is a premium membership-based service available on CNBC-TV18.com. It offers members exclusive content, market intelligence, and expert thought leadership. The membership includes access to CNBC-TV18's flagship events, interactions with our journalists, along with curated studio tours, e-learning sessions, as well as master classes and curated lifestyle benefits. Designed for an immersive and enriching experience, it empowers members with premium business intelligence and unique lifestyle benefits. The power of insight, the privilege of access, exclusivity, experiences, and influences. Yours to claim. Become a member, log on to cnbctv18.com/access/plans. Welcome back. You're watching Midcap Radar on CNBC TV18. Let's put the spotlight on BSE. Keep in mind that the stock had recovered as much as 130% from the lows that we saw in the month of March. In fact, the stock had been gaining momentum over the last 9 sessions. It closed in the green, but today it is taking a bit of a breather. The stock is down as much as 5% in the trading session today, and let me take you through the reasons. First up is the option premium turnover in the last 5 days. If we look at the trend, of course, when you look at the Tuesday, it is the day of the weekly expiry. Therefore, the volumes do tend to be higher. But when we look at the average option premium turnover in the last 5 days, it stands at 10,000 15,824 crores. This is much lower as compared to the average options premium turnover that we've seen both in the month of May as well as in the month of April. It has ranged, on an average in the last 2 months at 15,500 odd crores. In fact, when we particularly focus on the expiry days as well, we have been seeing the average option premium turnover in the previous 4 expiries, not the one that is on the 10th of June, but from 13th of May to 3rd of June. These are the 4 expiries that I'm talking about. Out here, the average option premium turnover was 41,815. Now, when you look at the expiry that took place yesterday, the options the premium volume seemed to have dipped by almost 50%. So therefore, it's a very large dip coming in as far as the volumes are concerned. The third point is on the market share. Now, when we look at the market share for BSE, keep in mind that in the month of December, the market share was at 16.4%. It then improved to 23.6% in the month of April. And this came on the back of the change in the day of the expiry from Friday to Tuesday that happened in the month of Jan. Now, when we look at the market share over the last 5 days, it has slipped by 70 basis points to 22.8% as if we compare it to the whole month of May. Today as well, there is a negative news flow around the counter wherein, it has been highlighted that BSE has been added to the stage 1 of the additional surveillance measures framework. And resultantly, on account of that, the trading on the stock rather will now attract a 100% margin. So that's another negative coming in for BSE. So largely, if we, just to conclude why the stock is down, first up is, there has been a decline in market share. Of course, the volumes in the option premium turnover have fallen, and given that the stock is seeing a downtick of almost 6% in trade today, even though Vivek, the stock had been making fresh highs consecutively.
Well, Vamakshi, clearly not a good day if you're an owner of any exchanges today. BSE, some negative news flow, MCX2 under pressure, and IEX, just an hour ago, our colleague did tell us about the worry of market coupling once again being in focus. But what's doing well today is the entire oil and gas pack. Oil India is in focus after a note from Avendus Spark. Sudarshan joins in with more details.
So amidst an all-round gain in the oil and gas space, one stock that is moving higher on the back of a positive brokerage note is Oil India. Avendus Spark has today initiated coverage in the stock with a buy call, and the target has given is of rupees 630, implying an upside of more than 41% from current levels. Avendus Spark believes that there is a potential of more than 80% in earnings growth over next 3 years, which is going to be led entirely by volume increase that company is going to see, and which will be added by increased capacity at Numaligarh, which is going to see high single-digit growth in the production. Also, Numaligarh project is expected to be completed by 2025 end and is likely to contribute to earnings by FY27. Some of the other catalysts that it has mentioned is first, infra projects provide better visibility on production growth. Also, new well gas pricing could be an added positive. So as per Avendus Spark, the recent correction that we have seen in commodities can be a good entry point as far as Oil India is concerned.
Well, thank you so much, Sudarshan. Even as we see quite a bit of a sharp sell-off emerging as far as the broader end of the markets is concerned, this particular stock well in the green, up over 5%. Well, before we slip into a short break, some important updates for our viewers as we understand that we could enhance our technical analysis with ready-made chart patterns feature from Money Control Super Pro. Monitor chart patterns as they develop live in the markets and be the first to seize opportunities. Get your investment superpower today. Subscribe now.
Welcome back. You're watching Midcap Radar on CNBC-TV18. Pull up the intraday chart for the Nifty index. We've seen the index significantly cool off from the day's highest point. In fact, when we compare the price right now, it's almost 100 point downtick as compared to the day's highest point. The mid-cap end of the market too is not doing too well. As far as some particular stocks are concerned, from the Nifty pack, we're seeing some very sharp falls on Shriram Finance. In fact, in the last 1 hour, the stock has given up 1% worth of gains. BL2 seeing a fall in today's trading session. But apart from that, when you look at the mid-cap end of the market, that is also taking a big knock. It is underperforming the benchmark indices. The mid-cap index is down almost 0.7%, and contributing to the fall is actually Hindustan Zinc. Keep in mind that there is a board meeting scheduled today to consider the first interim dividend for the company. The stock has taken a knock of almost 3% in the past hour. GIC too down and out almost 2% from the day's highest point. But moving on then, let's also focus in on the World Bank, because it has lowered its 2025 global GDP forecast to 2.3%, citing increased trade barriers and policy uncertainty. Meanwhile, India stands out, expected to grow 6.3% in FY26, remaining one of the fastest growing major economies. Ritu is here to get us more details on this. Ritu?
Let me begin with India, which is projected to maintain the fastest growth rate among the world's largest economies at 6.3% for FY26. But this is a slight downgrade, about 40 basis points lower than World Bank's January forecast, mainly because of weaker global demand and rising trade barriers impacting our exports. Now, this number compares with IMF's forecast of 6.2% and RBI's own 6.5% projection for the fiscal. But India is expected to bounce back. Growth is projected to average 6.6% in the next 2 fiscal years, at 6.5% for FY27 and 6.7% for FY28, driven by a strong services sector and a recovery in exports. But the picture is far less optimistic for the global economy, where growth is expected to weaken to 2.3% this year, with deceleration in most economies relative to last year. This, the World Bank says, will mark the slowest rate of growth since 2008, aside, of course, from outright global recessions. Now, a slow and uneven recovery is expected, with growth inching up to 2.4% in 2026 and 2.6% thereafter, leaving the global output materially below the January projections. To compare, IMF's last forecast for global economy was a tad higher at 2.8% this year and 3% for 2026. Now, the World Bank says rising trade barriers, policy uncertainty, and geopolitical tensions are largely to blame. Growth in advanced economies as well as emerging market economies will still remain far below their pre-pandemic trend, and the per capita income growth in emerging economies is expected to lag behind the richer nations, and poverty reduction, especially in fragile and conflict-hit countries, is stalling. Now, global trade is also expected to slow down sharply to well below historic averages this year. The World Bank says risks are mostly to the downside. A major worry, of course, is if the US raises the average tariffs by 10 percentage points, for instance, and trading partners retaliate, global growth could plunge by another 0.5% this year. But if disputes are resolved and tensions ease, growth could also increase by 0.2 percentage points, which offers some upside potential.
Thank you so much, Ritu, for joining us and giving us all of the details as far as what are the World Bank expectations as far as global growth is concerned. Well, the last hour has not been a very pretty sight, especially if you're looking at the markets. Have a look at the Nifty. It's fallen almost 0.5% from the day's highest point, a 100-point downtick. But the bigger worry or the bigger fall is actually in the broader end of the market. Have a look at the Nifty small cap index. Remember, we started the day in the green, and in fact, if you look at the mid-cap index down almost 1.2%, the small cap index seeing a much steeper fall, down almost 1.7% from the day's highest point. Let's have a look at a few of the stocks that are bearing the brunt of the selling pressure. First up, the entire power pack. Have a look at names like Power Grid. Remember, it's a heavyweight. Have a look at names like Torrent Power. Look at IEX. IEX has once again slipped to the day's lowest point. Vamakshi and me just discussed a couple of exchange stocks. So look at names like BSE as well as MCX. All of these stocks at the day's lowest points. But with that, it's all the time we have on this edition of Midcap Radar. Your stocks when we return.
suddenly e-commerce started to happen in India.
Yeah.
He was watching it here. I was watching Shopify in the US. And that was the point I realized that there is no Shopify in India. I said, okay, well, I know how to build websites. I do HTML development, and how difficult can it be? Neither of our parents were convinced.
So they were not convinced for good 2-3
Good
years.
3-4 years.
2-3
For
years.
3-4
but-
years.
Yeah, you have to imagine how it was 2013, 14.
Yeah,
People not look at startup or founder like that
Yeah.
in that sense.
People
Right?
were jobless.
From Craftly to Shiprocket, what was the hypothesis?
India e-commerce is still fledgling. Nobody can predict how it will go. What do we do as a business, right? Okay, let's become the Twilio of shipping. A lot of times people still ask us, are you like Shopify? Are you like FedEx? And who are you like? And we're like,
You're
we're
a
not-
little bit of everybody.
We're like us, right? Because we are solving a fundamental problem. In fact, we have noticed some other companies now in other emerging parts of the world in their slide decks calling them X of Shiprocket or whatever, Shiprocket of their country, right?